Welcome to the Chaotic Digital World Season 1 finale.
It's a brand new day. Wake up every morning and say, it's a brand new day. Take a good day, make it great. 'Cause if you got some lemons, make some lemonade. Yeah, taste so well to wait. It's a brand new day. It's a brand new day. It's a brand new day.
Can't believe we're already here.
Yes.
So this episode is for all of our listeners. We are calling this episode our Mailbag episode. We wanted to hear from you, our listeners, and get some feedback for our final episode of Season 1. Here's some background from the survey we posted. We got several responses, so thank you to anyone who responded and gave us some feedback. We got a lot of valuable information, and we're hoping that we'll be able to educate and give tips to help many other listeners out there. So the ages ranged from 5 to 18, and over half of the children that we're going to be talking about today are between 7 and 13. So just kind of keep that in your mind as you're listening to the questions and feedback. We asked what the most used sites were for kids this age, and this was surprising to me, but number 1 was Facebook, and number 2 was tied at YouTube and TikTok. So just a little background information before we get into the survey and some questions.
Yes, and thank you. We really appreciate the engagement. It's really exciting for us to see that, and our goal is to just make sure we're passing along helpful information and tools to everyone out there. So we really appreciate hearing from you all. So I want to talk about some of the personal benefits that people shared, that our listeners shared in the survey. Is that okay with you?
Yes, they had some great ideas.
Yeah, let me take a moment. So here's just a handful, but and we appreciated these responses, but watching YouTube, TikTok videos to learn some acting skills or cooking skills that motivate them to try new things. That's exciting. That's cool. You're getting new experiences and you're trying new things. So creating those neural connections in your brain, which I absolutely love. Next, connect with peers and experts in their field of interest, learn from others and share their own knowledge and experiences. So you're taking in information and then turning around and sharing it is one of the best ways to apply learning. Educational resources such as online courses, tutorials, and informative content. People are connecting to great things through social media. Raise awareness about important issues, promote creative expression, and facilitate collaboration on projects and initiatives. That's just wow. That's a big one. That's really cool. Awareness of classes or experiences to sign my kids up for. So creating family memories and just special moments for them to grow up and remember, all stemming through social media. They have learned a lot of random facts on YouTube and funny life hacks. I do that myself, so that's very cool. And last, from the handful that we selected, allowed my kids to participate in online art challenges and competitions, which motivated them to push their creative boundaries and strive for excellence. This helps develop resilience, adaptability, and networking skills. Very specific, but amazing. That's very cool to even call out the skills that they're learning from these experiences that they're signing up and finding online.
Yes, and we heard some of those in our interviews with the guests we've been interviewing, just from maybe looking at TikTok videos to teach math or using YouTube to post trick shot videos. So many advantages for kids and adults alike. So it's great. Okay, the next part of the survey was I wanted to know about cyberbullying, and 50% have witnessed cyberbullying out of the surveyed. And that's not even the ones that weren't sure if their kids had witnessed cyberbullying, but 50% for sure have seen it, which is kind of alarming. And 41% have actually experienced it. That's a big number to me.
That feels high. It feels high in a dangerous way.
Yes.
Yes.
It's out there for sure.
Yes.
And then we posted, this is mostly because we wanted it to be for you and purposeful in our interview questions. But the number 1 concern is seeing or hearing explicit content. And then the number 2 concern is the overuse of social media and digital devices. So we're really going to try to address that with the questions that people sent in today.
Yeah, and we talked about seeing or hearing explicit content in You Don't Know What You Don't Know, which is one of our previous episodes. If you haven't checked that out, we do a little bit of a deep dive into what explicit content is and how to help avoid it. But overuse, we've just heard over and over throughout our episodes that people are concerned with that, parents are concerned with that, and they see it in schools. We're trying to limit it. No device policies in classrooms being implemented and things like that. So there are efforts really coming from every direction.
Yes, it really is an extension of our kids these days, at home and at school. And that's why we're here.
That is correct. So we're going to jump into some questions. These were asked within the survey, and we will be giving ideas and tips based on our own experiences, as well as what we've learned and heard through many of the interviews. We'll probably make some references to some of the guests that we've had on thus far. If you haven't checked those out, and we make these references, do yourself a favor and go check those out.
There's some good ones.
There are some good ones, which we stated from the very beginning. We let our guests do the heavy lifting because that's why we had them on. But all right, Nick, I'm going to ask some questions from our listener mailbag. I wish I had a bag with questions in it. That'd be more fun. But I'm going to ask you some questions. I would love to hear your responses to these.
Yes, I will just base it off of kind of my own experiences, keeping in mind I have a 4, 8, and 10-year-old. So I still have a lot of learning to do, but just some things that I have learned or use, as well as what we've heard from the interviews or what I know friends or family members do.
And that's the beauty. There's so many different, we're snowflakes as families, right? Every one is unique. So experiences vary. And so you have a lot to learn, but we actually all do because it's all fluid. It's all dynamic. And that's the beauty of this. You can pick and choose what works best for your own family dynamic. So I like the way you frame that up. All right.
Mailbag question 1.
First question, not to make this challenging or difficult, but I'm going to start with a two-parter if that's okay.
Absolutely.
Okay. First part. For us parents that no longer see our kids without their phones in their hand, how can we break them of their addiction? And second part of that, is the growing trend of digital detoxes and unplugging from social media and digital devices beneficial for mental health and overall well-being? Or does it risk exacerbating feelings of isolation and disconnection in an increasingly digital world?
Great questions. So one of my takeaways from one of our interviews was when we were talking to Tracy Parnell, who is a licensed therapist. She was talking about when it is affecting their mood, it is important to force that break because it can truly turn into an addiction situation. And we have to teach our kids to balance, and that really trains your brain to be able to go back and forth from the digital world to real life. We kind of joke with my son like, oh, there you are, IRL in real life, when he's been on it for too long. But I see it with my kids. It starts to affect their mood. They get crabby, they get sad, they start talking back. It's like, okay, we gotta take a break and slow it down. And really, I find when you force that break, they might like be mad for a minute, but they end up finding something to do. They might stop and have a conversation with you. They might go outside and play. They get creative. That's just really when they have to get creative. So I do think it's important to make sure you're not having that isolation piece, to make sure that they're not just like, well, now I'm bored, I don't know what to do. Like teaching them what to do or talking to them about ideas, about going outside, playing on the playground, playing a game, getting some Legos out. So I think it's not a mentality of, all right, you need to get off and go find something else to do. But like last night, I was like, okay, my son's been, on a device for probably long enough. I've been cooking dinner and whatever. I kind of lost track of time. And I called him and I was like, hey, let's play a game. And so it doesn't always have to be you being involved, but we ended up playing a game for like 45 minutes and we laughed and we had fun and we interacted. So I think it's just important that they have that balance of being able to find other things. Dr. Hardin Bartley, superintendent of U City, and Tracy Parnell, as I just mentioned, talked a lot about that, like maybe having tech-free days, specified time off, like 30 minutes a day, or we're going to do tech-free Sundays. But it should include parents too. Like, we're role models. We don't want to be like, all right, you need to get off of technology, but we're going to be sitting there scrolling through our phone. I think we really have to do our role in that too. We have a rule at dinner time: no phones, no tablets, no anything. When we're sitting at the dinner table, we're talking about our day. We do Rosebud Thorn, where we talk about the positives, the negatives, and what we're looking forward to. So just making sure that you find that time to have conversations or find other hobbies or activities. Tracy's keep your feet in the grass, like be outside. All of those are just things that we try to incorporate in our family to make sure that, we are detoxing and taking those breaks, but our kids aren't feeling isolated or like it's a punishment. Sorry, that was a lot.
That was great. And I could not agree more. Children are likely to model behaviors from their parents, right? So it starts with us in limiting time on our own devices, creating those activities, just as you mentioned, indoor puzzles, game nights, go from the little screen to the big screen, have a movie night, or go outdoor hiking, walks, museums, zoo, local events, and just really finding something to do. And during those, those are obvious activities, right? And that's not necessarily the point. But the point is doing those activities to help make sure that they're not looking at their devices. These are family activity times. Those activities are to be done with very limited digital devices.
I mean, even just my 3 kids,
Yeah.
when they are all off of devices, they play together so well. It's amazing when we kind of force that to happen. Like, go play with your brother and sister.
Yeah. And it's really just about, okay, these activities are meant to be done to limit screen time. So let's just make that the rule. The way that you're handling that, it sounds great.
Thank you. It's working for now, and as they get older, we'll adjust. But even as a teacher, when my kids come in on Monday mornings and we talk about what you did over the weekend, it is half the classes I played Fortnite all weekend, and the other class talks about their experiences. And I try to make it a goal for my family that their memories, yes, Fortnite time or digital device time or mindless scrolling for adults is important, but like, when you go in Monday morning, I hope that you're sharing that you went to the Cardinals game or that you played with the neighbors or that you had a soccer game. Like, we want to create those memories for them that will last a lifetime.
Ready for question 2?
Bring it.
Mailbag question 2.
If I could go back in time and wait longer for my children to own their own cell phone, I would. I remember the pressure they felt to own one and how it felt depriving them since it seemed all their friends already had one. What advice would you give to parents who want to wait and not give in to the pressure or navigate the balance between allowing their children to benefit from social media and digital devices while also ensuring their safety and well-being?
Great question. I know that I'm dealing with that right now, and I think a lot of parents go through that battle at some point. My son in 4th grade has friends who had cell phones in 1st and 2nd grade, and many of his friends do now. The way we've kind of handled it is he has a hand-me-down phone that I have given him, that I have access to. I can see what he's doing on YouTube. I can see all of those things, so he doesn't have his own personal phone. And we've talked about kind of that, like, you have to show that you're responsible with it and that you're using it appropriately in order to get to the point where we're ready for you to have your own. At this point, he can do anything on that it's not a safety issue or I can't get a hold of you. He has Facebook Messenger. So, I mean, we're looking more like when you enter middle school and you're going further to school. So I think it's really about personal preference and not feeling that pressure, but they do make you feel pressured. When am I going to get one? When am I going to get one? All my friends have one. So not being pressured just because you hear that other kids have them. And that balance piece again, like having them involved in sports. I tell our kids all the time, like, there's going to be days where you're going to get probably more screen time than you want. Probably not great to say that, but there's just, it's really cold or rainy outside. We don't have anything going on because I know the next day we're going to be at a soccer tournament and then we're going to the family's house and you're not going to get any. So we don't necessarily have a like 1 hour per day type rule, but it's that balance. If you're handling it and you know when we say shut it off that you have to shut it off, you're not arguing, then there will be days that you have more and there will be days that you're having less. So that balance piece is important. I know there's YouTube for younger kids, so I think that is, a way to kind of keep the kids safe. And what I do with my 4-year-old is we have the term next. I'm always around if she's on it. She's 4. Like, I don't care if you watch YouTube videos now and then, but I always stay within hearing. So like if I'm cooking dinner or something and she's watching a video, if I hear anything, any situation or word, even if it's like stupid or dumb, and I don't feel like it's a positive message or that it's just an innocent video, they know if I say next, you hit the next button or you hit the back button. Like they just know in our house, if me or my husband say next, they click it off. Like I don't want it to get into an algorithm where it's starting to play videos that are inappropriate. So we just always try to stay close and listen to what they're watching and listen to what they're seeing. And, if that happens multiple times, then we might, monitor a little bit closer, but that's kind of the rule at our house. Next. So it happens. You don't know what's going to come up next.
I got nervous. I thought that last next was for me. I love it. Balance is the biggest thing, and connectivity and level setting the expectations of use, right? That could be just having a conversation and limiting, just like you said, he doesn't have his own device yet, but he's kind of in the wings of transitioning between his own device and kind of that beginner steps of it being introduced to this world.
Right.
So, and you're monitoring it, and I think those are all things that are beneficial in just keeping that connection, keeping the dialogue and that monitoring piece alive. And that's going to help going forward as they get older. I mean, it's all about just establishing appropriate habits. The younger we can do that, the better.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's easier to do that at the beginning, level set that expectation. Going back to our parent episode, Aaron talked about that and just trying to do that as early on in this digital relationship as possible. It just makes it easier going forward. And if that expectation of dialogue is also established at this point, you're setting yourself up for success in the future to be able to maintain that expectation.
Yes. Well, and sometimes, when you have a hand-me-down device, you don't have the internet when you leave the house. And so it's, can I get the hotspot? Nope, we're in the car. We're going to soccer practice. You don't need your device right now. Like it's, you gotta shut it off sometimes.
Balance.
Mm-hmm.
That's right. All right. You ready for question 3?
Yes.
Mailbag question 3.
Another 2-parter.
Okay.
All right. How should parents supervise and guide their children to use social media and digital devices correctly? Part 1. Second part, what are appropriate limits as children age? How to set up safeguards on children's devices?
Yes. So I think it was Daniel Root that talked about there is no silver bullet app. There are tons of apps out there, and you really have to kind of do your research and see, what is it that you're trying to limit? What settings are you trying to put on your child's device to see what the most appropriate one would be? But there are apps out there that you can use. Some other tools that I think are super helpful is on our website, we have a social media contract. So it's also in the book that Chris co-wrote. And then Aaron Branson in his parent interview talked about the social media contract he uses and just how important it is to have those conversations, like you just said, of, we're going to have hard conversations about what you're doing on your phone or how you're using social media. And it's not a punishment, it's a conversation. And we want to be open and honest about how you're using devices and social media so that we can teach them. Like their brains are still developing and they have to learn. It shouldn't be a punishment if they don't make a good choice. It should be this is what you did and this is why you shouldn't have done it. And we learn from that and we move on. As far as appropriate ages, as I just mentioned, I'm figuring that out. I don't think there's a right time or rule. I think you have to do what's best for your child. It could be, like I mentioned earlier, some first grade, second grade. Aaron Branson doing it in 8th grade. I loved that. That was your graduation gift. You had to wait till 8th grade to get it because then maybe you need it for safety or connection. So that conversation piece, again, is so important. Getting them to trust us so that when something does happen, they're comfortable coming to you. And Daniel Root, again, talked about that. Like, we want our kids to feel safe coming to us if somebody out there does or says something that makes them feel uncomfortable or if they make a mistake. So I think that that's really crucial. There are so many websites out there. Common Sense Media is one you've probably heard of that you can type in an app name, a movie, a TV show, a video game, and it's going to tell you the appropriate age for the game as well as, what it consists of. It's impossible for us to know every app and game and movie and show out there. So to do our research and know what our kids are on, I think is super important. I think I answered all the questions.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, you did.
So much to say about this. I'm learning so much.
Yes. Well said. And, the social media contract, even going back to the last question, is a great way to just create that expectation, right? You can always pull it out. I think Aaron talked about that. He says sometimes he needs to refer back to it and pull it out and say, hey, look, we set these expectations. You signed this. Here's the time and date stamp. But you can always refer back to that. Just having that contract just keeps everybody honest because you walked through what the expectations are line by line and everybody signed and agreed to that. So it's just a great way to start it. If possible, even if you can go back and basically sign a contract with somebody, one of your children that already has a device, it's still worth the time to do so. Introducing it is a tough conversation if that's the case, but you can always explain there are reasons for why we do what we do as parents, and safety is a big part of that. And monitoring, just like you said, finding the appropriate ways to do that. Monitoring is another tough conversation to have, but apps like Bark and like you said, Nick, you don't know what will work best for your family, so do the research. But Bark, they don't work so well with Apple devices or Apple products just because of some of the settings and privacy on those particular devices. But if you use Android and or Bark has their own device out now, which is pretty cool. It's like a starter device. You're setting this relationship up in a successful way, and you're bridging safety for your children. So you're really putting them in a position of safety. So I really like what you said, Nick, that it's just really about taking an interest in this, not taking for granted this relationship for our young children and this digital world. Dare I say, this chaotic digital world. I said it. But these are the things that we need to really consider for safety, limit cyberbullying, predators, all the things we've talked about with people in various positions throughout this season of episodes. It's a great resource to be able to say, hey, here are the best practices I could put in place, and we're setting our family up for success.
Yes. Well, and two things. You got me thinking of some more. I like that you mentioned that Aaron mentioned bringing the contract back out. I think that accountability piece is huge. And I know I slip on it sometimes. Okay, well, they signed a social media contract, so we're good. But no, we have to follow up and make sure they're following it and hold them accountable.
Living, breathing.
Yes, absolutely. And then I'm going to throw our sister under the bus. I hope she's not mad at me.
We'll see if she's listening.
Yeah, exactly. I have listened to her over the years. Her kids are older, so I'm always asking about social media and trying to learn ideas about devices. But she has switched the different apps that she's used for each kid, each time period, what issues are happening. And I feel like the one that worked for some of her kids more than others was just like obviously talking to them, but setting time limits. And I didn't even know that you could do that. So like you have this much time on this app a day, or this much time to make sure they're not doing that mindless scrolling for so long. So I think that's worth mentioning that there are just like time restraints you can put on so that they're not just on it all night in their room.
Yeah.
So sorry, sis.
I think Aaron talked about too putting time limits on the Wi-Fi.
Oh, he
He
did.
did. Yeah. So apps, but you can even take it back even further, Wi-Fi. So
Mhm.
if they're on just a Wi-Fi only device that doesn't necessarily have cellular data or they can't access it off of Wi-Fi, right? Now, if they're asking to go to their friends at a certain point that coincides with the time that the Wi-Fi goes off, you'll know why.
Exactly.
But yeah, just and I love the term unintended consequences. So if we put things in place, kids are sneaky,
Mhm.
kids are smart, and think about their actions if they are doing things that may seem a little bit different. Maybe it's because of some things we put in place and they're trying to find workarounds. So just be thoughtful of those types of things and just be considerate of whatever we put in place. Try to think of the unintended consequences that may follow. Just food for thought.
Tracy Parnell referenced those unintended consequences and talked about that a little bit too. And that just reminded me that, we need to remember that we are their parents, not their friends. We're not trying to like, oh, but I want them to love me, so I'm going to get them a phone. Like, no, our job is to keep them safe and to teach them. So many good interviews out there to check out if you haven't checked them out. As you can't tell, they have a lot of great things to say.
Yeah, I'm going to go back and listen to that. That was a fun one.
Yes.
Have you ever had the tables turned on you, Nichole?
What do you mean?
This last question,
You're turning the tables on me?
not me, our listeners.
Oh, okay. They're going to do that to
They
us,
turn
huh?
the tables on us. Check this out.
Mailbag question 4. What do you feel is the most important thing to share with your children regarding digital devices and social media use?
Well played, listeners. Well played.
That is. And I just so happened to put that last because that's how we ended all of our interviews this season. And the tables have now been turned.
And now I see how hard this question is.
This is a tough one. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on what you think the most important thing is to share with our children regarding digital devices and social media.
So I talked about a lot of things, obviously, that, we're trying and learning in our family. Everybody's experience is different and their perspectives are different. There's no right or wrong. But I really feel like balance. And I think I said that a lot. Like this social media, this digital world we live in is not going away. It's not going anywhere. And I want my kids to reap the benefits of it, but I want them to also be in the grass. I want them to be having face-to-face interaction with others and creating memories with our family. So I think my most important part is that it is just balanced and that you're using it appropriately and they know when it's time to get off. We're going to do something else. So I would say that's my number one.
Very nice.
Okay, but now if I answer, you have to answer too.
Okay, fair enough. Fair enough. So, knowing what I know and the research I've done and the work that I've done on a variety of things around the topic, trainings, the book, and things like that, have to be media literacy. And at two levels, it's obviously important, I think, for children to learn that skill earlier than later, to understand how they may be targeted for ad campaigns or the influence and the persuasion, things to look out for. But honestly, I think from the parent's perspective, learning media literacy and being able to share experiences and examples and being involved in that way. Hey, don't let these comments on your Instagram feed or TikTok or lack of comments, don't let those things impact you, you know, and just understanding if somebody does say a mean comment and the parent be able to have that conversation and understand media literacy in a way to explain it so that they really understand how to ingest or intake this information that's coming at them, how to interpret it, I think is so important, and it helps to be able to create the appropriate expectations when ingesting all this media or this overload of media coming at you as a child, and then also being able to then turn around and produce appropriate content at the same time. So it's like a two-way street. But the parents being involved in media literacy and understanding that as a skill, learning a little bit more about that. Not that we need to be experts as parents, but just being able to, we protect our children in so many ways. And this is a really strong way to protect our children in the digital world. And I just think it's a really important and critical skill that people can learn more about and be able to share that and kind of change the experiences and the dynamics of this world and this relationship with their children.
That is a great response. And I think media literacy is something we can take for granted. I learned so much from reading your book and doing the podcast about media literacy. So if you haven't checked that out, knowledge is power. It has so many great things. And I think you'll definitely get a lot out of it.
Yeah, well, thank you. Well, listeners, thank you. We look forward to doing this again. We'll have some summer bonus content. Of course, it will put out. We don't want to leave you hanging for too long if you're following along and tracking with us. So before we end, I have to say thank you. Thank you for the support. We are seeing our listener engagement as well as the people listening has been growing, and it's growing faster and faster, which makes us happy because we feel like we're reaching a bigger audience and feels like we're contributing to helping people, which is what this is all about. So thank you. We really appreciate your time. We appreciate your engagement, and we hope to continue to grow this in a really meaningful way.
Yes, couldn't have said it better myself. We appreciate all of you, and we're glad you're learning alongside of us.
Yeah. And Nick, as always, I appreciate your time as well in this.
It's been a great journey. I appreciate your time. Can't wait to do it again.
Take them home.
All right. And remember, in the midst of chaos, there's always a way to find clarity. Have a great day.
Bye.
We are growing and would love your feedback. Please rate us and share your thoughts or any topics you would be interested in us covering in the future. Are you or someone you know interested in being a guest on the podcast? Visit us at chaoticdigitalworld.com.
One way to help support the show is by adding a new resource to your library. Order a copy of A Parent's Guide, Keeping Your Children Safe in a Chaotic Digital World today on Amazon. Follow us on all social media platforms, and don't forget to subscribe to keep updated with new episodes and bonus content. As always, thank you for listening. This episode of Chaotic Digital World is brought to you in part by Next Steps Inc. Next Steps, a software created for schools or organizations to transform the way we think about attendance management. Did you know? When an institution or organization uses 5 minutes per day for 6 sessions, that's equivalent to 15 wasted hours per month. And if there's an emergency evacuation, emergency personnel have to go in and search for those who may be hiding. We've solved those problems and more. At Next Steps, you can say goodbye to manual attendance and hello to efficiency and productivity. Our software automates the entire process, saving you time and resources. Visit us on our website at next-stepsinc.com to book a demo and learn more. We're waiting to speak with you.